Startling revelations have just surfaced from Ouagadougou, sending shockwaves across the globe. Burkina Faso's leader, President Ibrahim Traoré, enacted a monumental decision this morning, shaking the very core of the world's financial structure. Occurrences at the governmental palace within the capital, Ouagadougou, have triggered significant tremors throughout international economic spheres. An extraordinary session of the cabinet, commencing at 9 a.m. local time, was abruptly halted by unforeseen turn of events. Traoré's directive signified a crucial turning point, not merely for Burkina Faso, but for the entirety of the African continent. This audacious step by the youthful head of state brings into sharp focus the operations of global financial bodies within Africa. It all commenced the previous week, stemming from the investigations of a specially formed audit committee under Burkina Faso's Ministry of Finance. This group of young technocrats meticulously examined the nation's dealings with the World Bank, uncovering a grim reality. The disturbing extent of the findings from these inquiries sent a profound shock through everyone involved. Commission reports indicated that since 1960, Burkina Faso had remitted interest payments to the World Bank amounting to 15 times the original loan principal. More astonishing was the revelation that the bulk of these loans financed non-existent or phantom projects. Infrastructure like roads, hospitals, and schools, documented on paper, never materialized in reality, yet regular payments were made, interest accrued, and debts ballooned exponentially. Thorough investigations by financial specialists unearthed astonishing documentation. Clandestine agreements between World Bank officials and the nation's past leaders, alongside commission deals and proof of bribery and influence peddling, came to light piece by piece. The most damning was a secret 2019 protocol signed by the then administration, committing 40% of Burkina Faso's gold reserves as collateral to the World Bank, an accord concealed from Parliament and the populace. Professor Amadou Sawadogo, chairman of the Audit Commission, declared, "For half a century, the people of Burkina Faso have endured systematic economic exploitation. The documents we possess irrefutably show this is not coincidental, but a calculated, deliberate system of pillage." When these explosive files reached President Traoré, his reaction was reportedly one of intense fury. Palace insiders recounted his profound anger upon reviewing the evidence, leading him to immediately summon James Morrison, the World Bank's West Africa Regional Director. Morrison, arriving with his delegation that afternoon, was met with an unanticipated and severe reception. Escorted under stringent security by palace guards to the meeting room, he found Traoré waiting, his expression grave, underscoring the situation's seriousness. The ensuing dialogue was historic. Traoré, placing the files firmly on the table, began, "Mr. Morrison, these documents prove your 50-year robbery of my country and people. Phantom projects, fictitious loans, crippling interest rates, the list is long. Burkina Faso's ostensible debt is $4 billion, yet we've paid you $23 billion. What kind of mathematics is this?" Traoré challenged. Morrison's attempt to defend his institution was curtly dismissed. "Spare me your standard procedures, Mr. Morrison. This is organized plunder, and it stops today. You have 24 hours. Cancel these unjust debts and return what was stolen, or you and your team face arrest for economic war crimes." Morrison's plea for diplomatic immunity was met with a steely rejection from Traoré. "Those perpetrating economic genocide have no immunity. The evidence is here. Our courts will deliver the justice you deserve." Following the tense meeting, Traoré addressed the national and international media. In the palace garden, flanked by the Burkinabe flag and a portrait of national icon, Thomas Sankara, his words resonated globally. "Dear Burkinabe brothers, all African peoples, today is historic. We expose 50 years of deceit and plunder. We will dismantle this global exploitation machine masquerading as the World Bank. Our fathers were tricked, our grandfathers duped, but this game ends now. Africa's wealth is for Africans. No one will steal from us again." As Traoré displayed the incriminating documents, attending journalists were visibly aghast. The revelations included secret pacts with former heads of state, commission receipts, and bank statements detailing illicit transactions. Immediately, widespread demonstrations erupted in Ouagadougou streets. Thousands converged on the World Bank office, chanting, "We want our money back." University students displayed banners supporting Traoré, while women joined protests, banging pots and pans. The hashtag #TraoreVsWorldBank trended globally. Messages of solidarity poured in from across Africa. Finally, a brave leader to challenge imperialism was a common sentiment. Mali's president, Assimi Goïta, was the first to publicly offer support, stating, "Burkina Faso isn't alone, we've suffered the same plunder, it's time to unite." Traoré's bravery is an example. "Africa is awakening," he declared. Guinea's president, Mamadi Doumbouya, echoed these sentiments. "Our young brother Traoré is on the correct path, we'll follow suit. Africans must control Africa's resources." Uganda's veteran leader, Yoweri Museveni, offered surprising backing, praising Traoré. "What he has done, we should have done 50 years ago, a late but right step." The World Bank convened an emergency crisis meeting in Washington, with President Ajay Banga and regional directors discussing the alarm. The IMF's Kristalina Georgieva urged Burkina Faso to show moderation, a call met with derision in Africa, perceived as the colonizers' panic. Paris activated diplomatic channels, dispatching Macron's Africa advisor to Ouagadougou. The French Foreign Ministry issued a warning, but Traoré refused their delegation, messaging, "Settle with the World Bank first, then we'll talk." The U.S. State Department's call for compliance with international rules was criticized by African experts as upholding neo-colonial norms. In a dramatic turn, James Morrison's team attempted a clandestine departure, but was intercepted at the airport by special security units, acting on Traoré's foresight. Morrison's passport was seized, and he was returned to the palace. China then offered support, with Beijing affirming every nation's right to economic independence, and its development bank offering interest-free loans to Burkina Faso. Unsettling Western powers, Russia's statement was even more direct, labeling World Bank activities in Africa as neo-colonialism. Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, lauded Traoré's courage, asserting, "Africans have the right to their own destiny." Late that evening, a major leak on social media exposed the World Bank's secret correspondence, detailing how African nations were systematically ensnared in debt. A document titled "Strategy to Keep Poor Countries in Debt Forever" went viral. Its horrific details, media organizations were directed, and dissent silenced. As midnight approached, Burkinabe security forces sealed all World Bank offices in Ouagadougou, confiscating safes and documents, which were sent to the prosecutor's office. Traoré vowed these would be used in court. The African Union held an extraordinary session in Addis Ababa. 41 of 53 members backed Traoré, establishing a commission to review World Bank relations. The African Development Bank president called for a new, independent African financing system. Ouagadougou's citizens held vigils all night. Chants of "We won't let Morrison escape" filled the air. Fires were lit, and Traoré's posters adorned walls, inscribed, "Our hero leader." Western media attempted to downplay events. CNN termed Traoré populist. BBC warned of economic disaster, and the Financial Times headlined, "Burkina Faso commits economic suicide." African media, however, reported the unfolding truth. As Morrison's 24-hour ultimatum neared its end, conflicting news emerged from Washington. Would the bank yield, or would an embargo follow? The next morning, the historic confrontation resumed. Morrison, back at the palace, with the world watching live, tremulously stated, "Headquarters accepts debt restructuring, a 50% reduction." Traoré, resolute, shook his head. "No restructuring, cancellation, and the return of the stolen $23 billion. Morrison, ashen-faced, replied, "Impossible, the World Bank lacks such authority." Traoré stood. "Then you are under arrest, Mr. Morrison, for economic war crimes." At his signal, Morrison was handcuffed. For the first time, a World Bank director was arrested. His cries of diplomatic immunity were met by Traoré's cold retort. "Genocide perpetrators have no immunity." Morrison and his team were imprisoned. Global financial markets reacted with panic. World Bank shares plummeted 12%. Western banks in Africa went on high alert. At noon, Traoré addressed a crowd of 100,000 in Thomasankara Square. "Brothers, today we declare true independence, no more robbery. Our wealth, our gold, our uranium are ours, for our people." The crowd's applause was deafening. "Long live independent Burkina Faso," echoed. Messages of support from across Africa were read. Traditional dances performed, and elders prayed in tears. This was a watershed moment for Burkina Faso and all of Africa. The old order was crumbling. The World Bank and similar bodies could no longer operate with impunity. Brave leaders like Traore were rising, Africa was awakening, a domino effect initiated. The question of the World Bank's response, Traore's next move, and Morrison's fate captivated global attention. This action also reshaped global power dynamics. BRICS nations swiftly backed Burkina Faso. India's PM Modi declared support for Africa's rightful struggle. Brazil's Lula da Silva urged a united front against imperialism. South Africa's Ramaphosa invited Traore to Pretoria. Dissenting voices also emerged in the EU, with Spanish and Portuguese MPs questioning World Bank Africa policies. Italian senators sent Traore a letter of support. Germany's Die Linke Party affirmed Africa's demands. In Burkina Faso, a festive spirit prevailed. School children drew Traore's likeness. Market vendors shouted, "We kicked out the World Bank." Mosques and churches held special prayers. Elders proclaimed, "Not since Thomas Sankara have we seen such a leader." Morrison's arrest, the shock on his handcuffed face as he was led to a prison vehicle, was widely circulated, despite Western media's reticence. African youth declared, "History is being made." Venezuela's Maduro offered discounted petroleum, stating, "The Bolivarian Revolution echoes in Africa." Cuba's Diaz-Canel pledged doctors and teachers. Iran's foreign minister announced, "The axis of resistance against imperialism expands." Anxiety gripped World Bank employees. Hundreds of experts in Africa sent families home. Security at the Kenya office was heightened. Nigerian personnel took leave. Ethiopia's regional center suspended operations. Wall Street remained panicked. Africa-focused funds saw major losses, commodity markets fluctuated, and gold prices hit record highs. Experts dubbed this the Traore effect. Burkinabe intelligence then revealed more damning documents from Morrison's computer. A decade of correspondence detailing the bribery of African leaders, coup plots, assassination lists, and covert operations. Traore announced these would be sent to the International Court of Justice. The African diaspora in France organized massive demonstrations. Tens of thousands marched in Paris, supporting Traore. In Lyon, Burkinabe students held vigils outside the consulate. Celebrations erupted in African neighborhoods in Marseille. Even within the U.S. Congress, support for Traore grew. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of the Democratic Party's progressive wing called for World Bank reform. Bernie Sanders empathized with the rightful struggle of African peoples. Republican Rand Paul questioned foreign aid. Turkey also saw notable statements. While officials were measured, public support for Traore was immense. Turkish social media users praised him, sparking discussions about Turkey's potential for a more active role, given its historical ties to Africa. Asian nations like Japan and South Korea remained silent. However, Africa experts in these countries acknowledged Traore's stance as justified. Professor Yamamoto of Tokyo University remarked, "Africa's renaissance is dawning." Dr. Kim Park from Seoul suggested, "This could herald a new world order." The Burkina Faso military celebrated a profound victory. Soldiers united behind Traore. Generals proudly acclaimed their young leader as pilots performed victory flights. The populace embraced their army. One certainty emerged: Africa was irrevocably changed. New leaders, inspired by Traore's path, would arise. The system of exploitation was being dismantled. African peoples were poised to reclaim their deserved prosperity, with Ibrahim Traoré, the brave leader, etched into history as its vanguard.